There is a feathery green herb sitting in the corner of grocery store produce shelves right now that most people buy for one reason: to sprinkle a little on top of a dish for looks, and then let the rest wilt and rot in the back of the fridge. We treat it as decoration, a garnish, something pretty to scatter over fish or potatoes before it's scraped off the plate and thrown in the bin. And in doing that, we've quietly forgotten something that half the world still knows. This is not a decoration. This is one of the oldest, most nourishing, most useful herbs human beings have ever grown. And we've demoted it to a sprig on the side of a plate. This is dill. And the story of how a plant that fed and flavored the ancient world became a throwaway garnish in the modern one says a great deal about how much good food we walk right past every single day. Let me take you back, because dill's history runs deeper than almost anything else in your spice rack. This is one of the oldest cultivated herbs on Earth. It grew wild around the Mediterranean and Western Asia, and people have been deliberately growing and using it for thousands of years. It turns up in the records of ancient Egypt, where it was valued both in the kitchen and as a soothing remedy. The Greeks and Romans grew it widely. The Romans considered it a sign of good fortune and wove it into wreaths. And Roman soldiers and gladiators were said to be given dishes seasoned with it. Its very name carries the echo of its oldest use. The word is often traced to an old term meaning to soothe or to lull, because for as far back as anyone recorded it, dill was the herb people reached for to calm an upset stomach and settle a restless child. For century upon century, in kitchens and cottages across the old world, dill was not a garnish. It was a staple herb, a flavoring, and a household comfort, all at once. In fact, dill's role as a gentle household soother was so established that it became the basis of one of the most famous folk remedies in the English-speaking world. For generations, gripe water, the classic preparation given to calm, colicky, restless babies, was traditionally made with dill seed. Grandmothers brewed weak dill seed water to settle an uneasy stomach long before anyone had a word for what was in it. Through the medieval centuries, it grew in monastery and cottage gardens alike, prized as both a seasoning and a calming tea. None of this makes it a cure, but it tells you how deeply woven into daily life this herb once was, in a way a decorative sprig never could be. And here is what should give you pause. Across a huge part of the world, it still is exactly that. Nothing changed except us. In Scandinavia, dill is treated with something close to reverence, folded generously through fish, potatoes, and sauces. Across Russia and Eastern Europe, they don't sprinkle it, they cook with it by the fistful. In soups, in salads, in pickles, stirred through sour cream until whole dishes are green with it. In Greece, it flavors pies and yogurt sauces. Across Persia and the Middle East, it's cooked into rice and stews in great handfuls. In parts of India, it's treated as a leafy green in its own right, cooked down with lentils. In Iran, dill is cooked into a beloved rice dish with fava beans and stirred into thick herb stews. In Indian kitchens, it's treated frankly as a vegetable, chopped and cooked with split lentils or potatoes as the main green of the dish, not a trimming on the side. When you see how much of it these cuisines fold into a single meal, the Western sprinkle starts to look almost comical. For most of humanity, dill has always been an ingredient, a real, central, generous part of the meal. It's really only in modern Western kitchens that we shrank it down to a token sprig and forgot what it was for. How did that happen? Part of it is simply the rise of the modern restaurant plate, where a sprig of green became a visual flourish, something to signal freshness to the eye rather than actually feed the body. Part of it is that we came to buy our herbs in tiny plastic clamshells, in amounts so small and so expensive that using dill by the handful felt almost wasteful. And part of it is that we lost the home kitchens where a herb like this was grown in the garden, cut fresh and thrown into the pot without a second thought. Somewhere in the shuffle from the garden to the grocery shelf, dill went from a thing you cooked with to a thing you decorated with, and a great deal of flavor and nourishment quietly went with it. So let's talk about what we've actually been throwing away, because the nutrition is the part that surprises people. For a humble herb, fresh dill is genuinely nutrient-dense. It's a real source of vitamin C, the everyday vitamin your body can't store and needs to keep taking in. It's rich in the plant pigments your body converts into vitamin A. The carotenoids, like beta-carotene, they give it that deep green. It provides minerals, manganese, iron, calcium, magnesium, potassium, and folate. And it carries a whole family of aromatic antioxidant compounds. The plant oils that give dill its distinctive fresh, grassy, faintly citrusy scent, chief among them a compound called carvone, along with limonene and flavonoids, like the ones found in many of the healthiest plants we eat. Gram for gram, this garnish is far more nutritious than most people would ever guess. And those aromatic oils aren't only about flavor. The same compounds that give dill its bright, unmistakable scent, carvone chief among them, are part of why it's been valued as a digestive herb for so long. And they belong to the broad family of plant antioxidants that a healthful diet is built on. The deep green pigment carries the carotenoids. The fresh, sharp taste carries the vitamin C. The whole plant is a small, dense package of the ordinary good nutrition that wild and garden greens have always provided, and that so much of modern food quietly lacks. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you here, because I won't sell you a fairy tale. And this is actually the whole point of the video. A tiny pinch of dill sprinkled on top for looks does almost nothing for you nutritionally. You could scatter that token sprig on every meal, and it would barely register. The nutrition in dill only starts to matter when you stop treating it as decoration and start using it the way the rest of the world does, by the handful. As an actual green, an actual ingredient, in real quantity. That is the entire message. Dill isn't nutritious as a garnish. It's nutritious as food. The problem was never the plant. The problem was the sprinkle. Use it generously, and you're adding a genuinely healthful green to your plate. Use it as decoration, and you're just throwing most of it away. And let me be equally straight about what dill is not, because the internet is full of wild claims about this plant. You will see videos insisting that dill heals everything, that it cures your liver, your kidneys, your heart, your eyesight, all at once. That is not true, and I'm not going to repeat it. Dill is a wonderful, healthful, nutritious herb with a long and genuine history of traditional use. People have reached for it to ease digestion and settle the stomach for thousands of years, and that tradition is real and worth knowing. But a herb is a food, not a medicine. Dill will not cure a disease. It is not a substitute for anything your doctor provides. And nothing in this video is medical advice. What it is, plainly, honestly, is one of the most flavorful and nourishing green herbs you can grow or buy. And that, on its own, is reason enough to stop wasting it. So let's put it to real use, because this is where dill earns its place. Start with the pairings the whole world already agrees on. Dill and fish are a match made centuries ago. It's the soul of Scandinavian cured salmon, and it lifts almost any simple fish dish. Dill and potatoes are pure comfort, whether stirred through a warm potato salad or scattered over buttered new potatoes. Dill and yogurt or sour cream give you the backbone of a whole world of cool, creamy sauces. The tzatziki of Greece, the ritis of India, the herbed sour cream of Eastern Europe. It brightens eggs and omelets, transforms a plain green salad, and turns a pot of soup fresh and summery. It's essential in a cold cucumber soup and classic stirred into borscht. If you've never really tasted it on its own, dill has a flavor all its own. Cool, grassy, and green, with a faint anise-like sweetness and a bright, almost lemony lift that wakes up rich and creamy foods like nothing else. That's exactly why it pairs so naturally with fatty fish, soured cream, and starchy potatoes. It cuts through them and freshens them at the same time. And then there's the most famous job dill has ever done, the pickle. That sharp, cool, unmistakable flavor of a proper dill pickle comes from exactly this herb. Tossed whole leaves, stems, and seed heads into the brine. Which brings us to the other half of the plant most people don't even realize they can use. Dill gives you two ingredients in one. There are the soft, feathery leaves called dillweed, best added fresh at the end of cooking so their delicate flavor isn't cooked away. And there are the seeds, which form after the plant flowers. A warm, aromatic spice in their own right, wonderful in breads, in pickling, in spice blends, and in the same soothing teas people have brewed for generations. One plant, two distinct flavors, endless uses. Let me give you a few concrete ways to actually use it in quantity, since that's the whole point. The simplest, stir a big handful of chopped fresh dill, along with grated cucumber and a little garlic, into thick yogurt. For a cool sauce that goes on everything from grilled meat to warm flat bread, fold a generous amount through boiled potatoes with butter and a squeeze of lemon. Whisk it into eggs before you scramble them. Stir it, by the fistful, into a pot of soup right at the end. Toss it raw and abundant through a salad of cucumber and tomato. Layer whole sprigs and seed heads into a jar of cucumbers and brine and make your own dill pickles. In every one of these, dill isn't a decoration you could leave off. It's the flavor of the dish itself. That's how the rest of the world has always used it, and it's how you get both the taste and the goodness. And consider what growing it saves you. A few clamshells of fresh dill from the store add up over a season, and half of each one usually rots in the fridge before you use it. A single packet of seed, scattered once, gives you more dill than you could eat, coming back on its own year after year for nothing. This was never an expensive or difficult ingredient. We just turned it into one by forgetting how to grow it and how to use it. Now let me show you the best part of all. The part that turns this from a grocery item into something you'll never have to buy again. Growing your own. Because dill is almost absurdly easy to grow. And once you have it, you have it. It's an annual, and it grows fast from seed. Give it a spot with plenty of sun and reasonably well-drained soil, and it will practically raise itself. Here's the one thing to know up front, and it's the mistake beginners make. Dill does not like to be transplanted. It grows a long taproot and resents having its roots disturbed. So you don't start it in little pots and move it. You sow the seed directly where you want it to grow. Scatter the seeds, barely cover them, keep them lightly moist, and they'll come up in a couple of weeks. And here's the trick for a steady supply all season. Sow a small patch. Then sow another small patch 2 or 3 weeks later, and again after that. This is called succession sowing, and it means that as one batch matures and starts to fade, the next is coming up fresh behind it. So you're never without tender young leaves. A few more details make it close to foolproof. Dill isn't fussy about rich soil. Decent, well-drained ground is plenty. And overly rich soil actually gives you floppier, less flavorful plants, so don't overfeed it. Thin your seedlings so each plant has a little breathing room and air can move between them. It grows tall, so a sheltered spot or a bit of support keeps the taller stalks from toppling in the wind. And yes, you can absolutely grow it in a pot. Just choose a deep container to give that long taproot room to go down. And keep it well watered, since pots dry out faster. Dill also makes a fine garden companion, growing happily near cabbage family plants and lettuces. Though it's best kept away from carrots and fennel, it's close relatives. You'll want to understand what dill does as it grows, too, because it has a life cycle you can work with. When the weather turns hot, dill bolts. It stops making leaves and sends up a tall stalk topped with a wide, lacy umbrella of tiny yellow flowers racing to make seed. For the best, most tender leaf flavor, you harvest the leaves before the plant flowers. But bolting is not a failure, it's an opportunity. Let some of your plants flower, and you get 3 gifts at once. First, those flowers turn into the aromatic dill seed you can harvest and store. Second, the flowers are magnets for pollinators and for the beneficial insects that quietly protect your whole garden. Dill is one of the great insectary plants. And third, and this one delights people, dill is a host plant for swallowtail butterflies, whose striped caterpillars feed on it, so a patch of dill can hand you a summer of butterflies as a bonus. And if your dill bolts faster than you'd like in the high summer heat, which it will, don't fight it too hard. That's simply its nature. The answer isn't to stop the plant flowering. It's to keep sowing fresh short rows, so you always have young leafy plants coming along beside the older, flowering ones. In the cooler weather of spring and fall, the leaves last longest. In the heat of midsummer, lean on those seed heads and your frozen stores. Work with the plant's rhythm instead of against it, and you'll have dill in some form from the first warm days right through to frost. Harvesting couldn't be simpler. Snip the feathery leaves as you need them, taking from the top to encourage the plant to keep producing. For the seeds, wait until the flower heads turn brown and the seeds look plump and tan. Then snip the whole head, hang it upside down inside a paper bag in a dry place, and let the seeds fall as they finish drying. And here's the gift that keeps giving. If you let a few flower heads drop their seed right onto the soil, dill will reseed itself and come back on its own the next year, volunteering in the corners of your garden without you lifting a finger. Plant it once, and you may well have it for years. Now, because fresh is always best with this herb, let me tell you how to keep what you can't use right away and how not to. Dill's tender leaves are at their most fragrant fresh, and I'll be honest, dry dill weed loses a great deal of its flavor, becoming a pale shadow of the fresh herb, so drying the leaves is the weakest way to store them. Freezing works far better. Chop the fresh leaves and freeze them in a little water or oil in an ice cube tray. And you can drop a cube of summer dill straight into a winter soup or sauce. The seeds are the easy ones, fully dried, stored in a jar somewhere cool and dark. Dill seed keeps its aroma for a long time, ready whenever you need it. So the plan is simple. Use the leaves fresh, freeze the surplus, and dry the seed. One more trick worth knowing. You can also make a dill compound butter by working plenty of the chopped fresh herb into softened butter, then chilling or freezing it. A ready-made hit of summer dill to melt over fish or potatoes months later. However you keep it, the goal is the same, to capture that fresh flavor at its peak. So you're cooking with real, generous amounts of the herb all year round, not a sad, dried pinch. Let me give you the honest cautions too, because responsible is better than reckless, even with something as friendly as a kitchen herb. Dill belongs to the same botanical family as carrots, celery, fennel, and parsley. So on the rare chance you have an allergy to that family, treat dill with the same care. And while dill is a perfectly ordinary, safe food, eaten the normal way you'd eat any herb. That's the key phrase, the normal way. Concentrated preparations, strong medicinal teas, or dill essential oil are a different matter from cooking with the herb. And anyone who is pregnant, in particular, should simply stick to normal culinary amounts in food and skip the concentrated stuff. As you would with many strong herbs, eaten as the flavorful green ingredient it is in the amounts you'd actually cook with, dill is about as gentle and wholesome as food gets. Just remember, one more time, that it's a food and not a medicine. So here is the whole of it. That feathery herb you've been buying to sprinkle on top and then throw away is one of the oldest cultivated plants in human history. A herb that flavored the ancient world and that half the planet still cooks with by the handful today. It's genuinely nutritious, but only when you stop treating it as decoration and start using it as the real, generous ingredient it was always meant to be. It pairs with half the food in your kitchen. It gives you 2 ingredients in the leaf and the seed. And it's so easy to grow that a single sowing can feed you and the butterflies for years. Stop scraping it to the side of the plate. Start using it like the rest of the world. Never stopped doing. If this changed how you see the little green herb in your fridge, subscribe and hit the bell. There's a whole world of overlooked, everyday plants we've forgotten how to use, and we're rediscovering them one at a time. And tell me down in the comments, how do you use dill, or have you only ever used it as a garnish? I read every one. The next one is coming soon.